All right, guys. Hey, it's Rick Bigger. We're going to go through another video for the safety stand down week. So for this video, we're going to be talking about rehab procedures / heat illness. So we're in our protocols here, and we'll go to our content and go down to number 12, which is fireground related. And we go through the 12A fire rehabilitation concepts. So what you're going to find is that this just really is just a conceptual protocol, and there's not an actual step-by-step thing here on what we're going to do. Okay. So reading through this, basically the main thing this tells us on number 2 is that it's kind of the basics of effective fire rehab. So A, there, medical monitoring of firefighters. B, returning body temperatures to near normal, whether that's cooling and heat or warming during the cold. C, hydration and electrolyte replacement. And then D, incident command support of preventing firefighter return to fireground duty until medically appropriate. On 3 there, it tells you where to find in Section 19 the current fireground rehab policies utilized by TFD, and then some that are utilized by Oklahoma City. So we'll go back to Section 19. The appendix section, on the very last one, you'll have sample fireground policies. So this shows you in a sample policy of TFD's rehab policy. And if you see at the bottom, this was written in 2008. So I have no idea if this is still up to date. And this is what they're still doing. This is what the last update of our protocol has. Okay, so this will kind of walk you through how they set everything up for rehab. And then down there at the bottom, we have a lot of different forms, and these forms are all from Oklahoma City. You'll see they're all Oklahoma City Fire Department stuff. So the problem with this is that our staffing, our response is completely different than the way Tulsa works and the way Oklahoma City works. So this doesn't really work for us completely. So we are working on, as an EMS team, we're working on developing a rehab protocol that's specific to a Wausau fire, and then getting that over to the administration to get them to approve, to work that in and make sure that that works with their SOGs and that we have a solid rehab policy in place. Okay, so off of TFD's section, the main thing that you'll see on here that's going to apply to what we're going to do, okay, when you're talking about rehab in particular, what we're doing now, we have several ways. We're saying that our incident command, our BC, or our captains that are on scene, that they're going to observe their people and they're going to decide when they need to be rehabbed, and we're really just rehabbing on our own. And the fact that we have medics internal of makes this a little bit easier for us if our staffing's appropriate, right? And we get those guys cooled down. We have water on the trucks for guys to drink on all of the engines. I'm really hoping to be able to get it approved that we carry water on the medics as well, so that everybody has water on their apparatus, and that we have more water than we have because we've downsized the size of our water jugs, so we have less water than we used to. So I'd like to add more coolers to the medics to give us additional 2 to 4 gallons of water on scene, so we have more water to drink. The next there, as I've been harping on here lately, if you guys seen several of the videos that I put out talking about the cooling towels, and we have a proposal that's being developed to get more coolers onto the engines. So you have 2 on each the engines in the tower, so that every apparatus has an extra 2-gallon cooler that's used to dunk the cooling towels in, so that you have towels to use for rehab, whether that be just passively rehabbing when we're cleaning up, as we've been discussing, or actively rehabbing. Should we have somebody that gets into a jam, we have the towels there right away. From this as well, another example of rehab procedures is this picture with Tulsa, where they use arm and hand immersion in water. Okay, we don't have buckets on scene like this, but this may be something that we use, that we can utilize when we do get our protocol put together. This would be something that could be brought to scene by maybe another person in administration. Should we be on a prolonged scene where incident command decides, hey, we need to set up rehab, and that we have this gear at Station 4 that could be assessed by somebody else, and that could be brought out there, buckets for us, and water for us, coolers full of Gatorade, towels, ice, etc. So that's all we're going to be working on. But this is something that could be used just during training, especially for guys that maybe you're training out at the training center. For anybody that goes up there, taking 2 5-gallon buckets with you that you can put water in, put cold water in that you could help keep guys cooled down when you're training. This would be a lot more effective, or this has been shown to be very effective. Interesting thing from NFP 1584 that I found is that this is not as effective as the cooling towel around your neck, which is why I've been pushing to get that. But this is something that works and has been studied, and it does work. So if something you'd like to try out when you're in training and let us know how it works, we'd love to get that put into the protocol as well. So moving on from rehab into heat illness, we'll go to what protocols we do have. Okay, so once we go past rehab, they're past that, and they're designated by the incident command or one of the officers on scene that, hey, this guy's in a jam, whatever, bigger got too hot, and we need to get bigger in the truck and get looked at because he's in a jam. Okay, so we go to environmental number 11, and we have 11A, which is heat illness. So just like any other protocol, the top left here, it tells you what your priorities are. Okay, you'll see that number 1 is cooling therapy, number 2 is vital signs, number 3 is fluid resuscitation. So very simple protocol. The person is too hot, we need to get them cooled off. So at the very top there, you see at EMD level, what can we do right away before we have any other care that's out there is remove any sources of heat. So get that person out of the hot environment they're in, get them into the shade, get their bunker gear off. If they're in PT gear, get them down all the way to their PT gear, get all of their bunker gear off, and apply cool water to their entire skin surface. The great thing is we have water all the time. So even if we have to use tank water or a garden hose that's on the side of somebody's house, we can soak them head to toe with cool water and quickly help get them cooled off. Next is to move them. When you're talking about removing them from the hot environment, is get them into the back of the medic, get them on the cot, get them inside. We have an air conditioner in there, get the doors closed, let that air conditioner blow over them, and help start to get them cooled down. Moving on, continuing with cooling, we can apply ice packs, cool body, including head with water or saline, right? We already soaked them. This is another great time when that cooling towel comes into effect. We dunk that dude in the ice water, get it soaked, and we can lay it over their head and their neck, and it really helps to cool their body off very quickly. Next, apply ice packs to the groin, neck, or axilla regions. So put an ice pack in their groin, put one on the base of their neck, their back of the neck they can lay their head on, and then put one into each of their armpits and help start cooling them down. If you move down the protocol, the really next step there, that's the cooling therapy. We worked on it. Next is obtain vital signs. And the problem with any rehab protocol that I've seen so far and any EMS protocol on heat illness is they don't give us great vital signs to look at when it comes to dealing with rehab. So I dug into the NFPA 1584 and I found what they recommend for post-structure fire vital signs. So anybody that is designated that they need rehab and they're getting looked at by a medic, what vital signs they should have before they're allowed to be released. Okay. So the body temperature looking for is anything that's less than 100.5. So we want the temperature to be 100.5 or less. Our heart rate needs to be less than 100. The respiratory rate should be 12 to 20. The blood pressure should be 160 systolic or less. Diastolic should be less than 100. And their pulse ox, just like normal, should be above 94. The main ones I've seen from dealing with people in rehab is heart rate and blood pressure. So you'll see people's blood pressure elevated very high and their heart rate very high because they just came out of a structure fire. So that's the main thing, is to get them cooled down. And those are kind of the two vital signs that we can look at right on our screen right away. Next being the body temperature. We don't always check that, but on a heat illness, we always need to check that temperature. And any body temperature that's over 100.5 is serious, and they should not be released from rehab. On here, apply cardiac monitor. Okay, so that's something that's big, and you'll have this at some point during the safety stand-down as well, as talking about heart health. When you dig into heart health and especially heart attack, that's caused during structure fires or up to 24 hours after a structure fire. Oftentimes, medics and firemen misdiagnose people with a heat illness, and it turns out to be a cardiac event. So if somebody's telling you that they're not feeling well and you start checking them out, they always need to have a 4-lead on, and they should probably have a 12-lead too. We should probably look and see what's going on and make sure that there's not a cardiac event that's causing their fatigue and their confusing and misdiagnose that heat illness. We're still going to start cooling them off, and we're going to assume that once we get them in the back of the truck and we get the vital signs, we're going to put a 4-lead and a 12-lead on, and we're going to make sure that that fireman is not having a cardiac event. And if there's something weird on the EKG that we don't like, they need to be transported to the hospital. Next is IV access. When you move down and you get into intermediates and paramedics and you see what you can do, we can give IV fluids. Not only can we, but we should. Anybody that is fatigued, altered, or has hypotension during a heat illness should get fluids. So we should put a large bore IV in them and give them some fluids, and up to 2 liters that we can give to them, as long as there's no signs of pulmonary edema, right? So listen to your lungs always as you're giving fluids, and just give them 250 at a time and keep giving them fluids, and we can really help hydrate them really quickly. This is a time when normal saline is good. Okay, so if you watch the hydration video, we're talking about heat, right? When we sweat, we lose salt. That's the main one that we need. So normal saline has a high sodium content in it, and it helps replenish the salt in our body. So this is one of the few times when normal saline really works for us, is when we're talking about dehydration and heat illness. It does say on here, use chilled normal saline when available. We no longer have chilled normal saline, so you don't have to worry about that. Lastly, there on the paramedic section at the very bottom, you'll see they talk about Versed. So one of the complications of a heat illness can be a seizure. So if anyone has a seizure, we use Versed for that. Your dosage is 0.1 milligrams per kilogram, IV to a max of 5. So basically our dosage is going to be 5 during a seizure, and we can repeat that 1 time. And anyone who has a seizure due to a heat illness needs to be transported to the hospital. I'm going to click back from this real quick. When we were talking about IVs and rehydration, fluid resuscitation, I'm going to go back to the sample, section 19, sample rehab, and show you a great statement that definitely needs to be included, needs to be in your brain. This is not a policy for us. It's a recommendation based off this policy, but this is something that definitely should happen. So right in the center there, you'll see that any firefighters who receive IV fluids are considered to be in medical rehab and fall under EMS protocols. Additionally, those receiving IV fluids will be taken to the appropriate medical facility to obtain laboratory blood testing to ensure appropriate levels of hydration, electrolytes, and renal function. Okay? If you get that dehydrated to that point where you're falling out on a structure fire, rehab didn't work, and we're now into heat illness territory, and to the point where you need IV fluids. You need to be transported to the hospital, and the incident command really needs to take this statement into consideration and really make sure that those people are transported to get blood work done to ensure that their hydration levels are back normal, their electrolytes are back normal, and that their kidney function is back to normal. This is something the military deals with a lot due to long hikes. So it's a 5 to 7 mile hike in full camis, boots, and a 50 to 100 pound pack is a common just physical training, just training on a daily basis. You'll do up 15, sometimes in the Marine Corps you do a 27-mile hike. You see a lot of people that have kidney failure problems 1 to 3 days after that. It's very similar to sweat loss factor when you're talking about structure fires during hot environments. So it is important that somebody that needs to get IV fluids afterwards, that's that dehydrated, that they get checked out so you don't have problems with kidney function. You see 18, 19, 20-year-old kids in the military that go into kidney failure, and their entire career is over due to that damage it does to your kidneys. So good thing for you to think about as a medic, and good thing you think about as an incident commander. Anytime somebody falls out and they need fluids, they need to get checked out of the hospital. That blood work can also tell you if their troponin levels are high, okay, which cardiac health, still the number one killer of on-duty firemen, is heart attacks during or after or up to 24 hours after a structure fire. So it's kind of kill two birds with one stone. It's a great thing to do. We're transporting them. We're going to transport them here in town. They can get looked at and get back on duty as fast as they can, but make sure they do it safely. So that's what we got. As I said, guys, it's not perfect, but we are working on it. We do have the things that we need to do. We have our heat illness protocol. We have some sample rehab protocols that we can look at, and we're going to develop a really good one for Owasso, working with NFPA 1584, make sure that it all complies, and we're all good. Hopefully that gives you some good information about heat illness and about rehab. And thanks for watching these video, guys. If you have any suggestions for anything else you want to see, let me know. I appreciate your time, and I'll check you later.